Welcome, everybody. My name's Tony Sanders. I'm proud to be the superintendent of School District U-46. Welcome to our third Unite U-46 session. Before I hand it over to our co-chairs, I just wanted to start us off by recognizing the tragedy that happened in Uvalde Consolidated School District in Texas, and ask that we would take a moment of silence, 19 seconds of silence in honor of the victims, please. Thank you very much. So today, as I've done in the past, I've reached out to the superintendent. I did this with Broward. I did this today with the superintendent, Hal Harrell in Texas. I know that he's too busy to take phone calls, obviously, but I sent him an email from our community just uplifting him, saying that they will be in our thoughts and our prayers. I can't imagine as a community what they're going through. But I appreciate the fact that you still, despite everything going on, the weather, what happened in Texas, that you still made a point to come out here tonight, give us your time, give us your feedback. It is really that important. So thank you for taking your time away from your family to be here tonight to spend with us this evening. With that, I'll hand it over to Veronica, one of the co-chairs of our committee.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Veronica Medrano. I'm one of the community members helping to provide leadership to the Unite U-46 process. We're excited to see all of you here tonight. Thank you again for your cooperation while being assigned your table numbers this evening. These numbers give you an opportunity to meet and work with different people each time we do this. And so it helps us contribute to the diversity of opinion in each group. If you have missed either our first session or our second session, you are welcome to grab a copy of our meeting materials from those sessions in the back of the room. For those of you joining us virtually, there is our webpage that you can access all of these documents as well. As a reminder, as we go through this process, you may have questions that arise in your small groups and that we do not have time to address today, but we encourage you to provide that input and provide your input and feedback to us. There is on your desks, on your desk, we have the I have a question forms. So we encourage you to turn those in, fill those out if you have any comments, and then turn them in at the end of the meeting. There should be plenty of forms on each table. You may also ask a community leader or a district representative during the small group work activity for a few more of those. There's also an option for those of you who are joining us virtually. There is a sign-in sheet on each table. We encourage you to fill that out as it helps us understand who's joining us and helps us send you an invite for our next one. To join us for our Zoom participants, there's also a virtual option for this. Please take a moment to complete the information on these sheets so we can keep track of our attendance at these sessions and let you know about upcoming activities. Okay, tonight we will continue building the foundation for the recommendations that we will develop this fall. This is our last one before summer break, before you guys are all on vacation. Keep in mind that there are a lot of decisions that still need to be made. Okay, so we have a lot of choices to make and feedback to provide in the coming months. Okay, tonight we are going to learn more about a topic I know will directly impact a lot of our children, along with every elementary school in the district. The transition to middle school education and the start of pre-K kindergarten being offered at each building, which as a mother of a pre-K child, that's very exciting. Okay. At our first engagement session, we asked what you wanted to learn about this topic and more. So we have used this information and the questions you asked in building and the presentation in the building of the presentation for tonight. After this session, we are going to take a break for a few months, and we prepare for the next phase of our process in the fall. So keep an eye out for details on our upcoming sessions and a chance for an inside look at our school buildings during the building tours and open houses. We will have those, very exciting. We know you may not be able to attend each session, but please attend as many as possible because your collective voice matters to us. So then a quick reminder, you can stay up to date on all things U-46 on our website and social media. So if you guys have any questions on that, the information's on your folders. If you can't find it, just let us know and we'll let you know where to go. So now it's time to get to the focus of our session tonight. At our first community engagement session, the topics many of you said you wanted to learn more about and provide feedback on were the proposed shifts to middle school model and the expanded pre-K opportunities. That's what we will be discussing tonight. Tonight, we are hoping to gain insight on both of these important topics and ask for your feedback on how these changes should be rolled out across our district. So we have a team of speakers from U-46 here tonight with us. It is our pleasure to introduce Dr. Josh Carpenter, okay, the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, Katie Cox, the Director of Early Learners, and Leela, I don't want to mess up your last name. Yes. Our Assistant Superintendent of Schools. Okay, so now I will turn it over to you guys.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Josh Carpenter. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, and I'm joined by Katie Cox, who is our Director of our Early Learners Initiative, and also Lila Majstorovic, who's our Assistant Superintendent of Schools. And I would be remiss to say that this wasn't just us preparing for tonight. We had several, including the committee, who helped inform this presentation for this evening. I will, and Ms. Cox and I will go through the preschool portion of it, and then Ms. Majstorovic will take us through the middle school transition component. So we'll go ahead and get started. So just make sure my screen is, yes, it's there. The whys behind pre-K and middle school. Again, we'll start with pre-K. The outcomes for this evening is that the participants will learn about a typical day for a preschooler and for a middle schooler, and also our vision for preschool and the transition to middle school. So our U-46 Rising, our challenge, as you can see on the screen, I will read it. Our moral imperative to change until all our systems measurably work for all children. It is our responsibility to ensure all students are engaged in rigorous learning, receive quality core instruction, and can develop the skills they need for better life chances and opportunities. Our focus must be on rigor, agency, equity, and all systems must support. We will become a choice district that inspires families to join us. So with that, I will actually turn it over to Ms. Cox, and she'll take us through the next few slides. Ms. Cox.
So tonight I'd like to share with you all just a little bit of research and information about preschoolers. So 90% of our brain development happens in the first 5 years of our life, with only 2,000 days before we turn 5. Kindergarten and the years before it are really, really important at mapping out everything that's going to happen for the rest of our lives. The brain is adaptable and it can be influenced by really positive experiences in early childhood, and it can also be negatively impacted by negative experiences in those years. So by expanding preschool, what we're hoping to do is increase all of the positive experiences for the kids in our community so that we can get better outcomes from them, not when they just transition to kindergarten, but then also for years and years to come. In the 1960s, High Scope conducted one of the largest longitudinal studies of preschoolers. So they had 40 children that they put into a study, and they gave them a really awesome, high-powered like wonderful program for 2.5 hours a day for 5 days a week. These kids lived in Michigan and they were deemed at risk, and they followed them for 40 years. And what they found 40 years later was that by attending the preschool, the group that received the programming way outperformed the kids that did not receive the preschool. So they graduated from high school. They were more likely to have higher paying jobs, get higher education, and be employed, earn more, and less likely to need any social service support or involvement in the judicial system. They committed less crime, had lower rates of teen pregnancy. And what they concluded was that really by offering high quality programs, early learning just doesn't pay off for the kids and their grades and readiness for kindergarten, but it pays out for the community for years to come, which is why you probably are hearing like in the news or when we have elections, like everybody supports early childhood, doesn't matter what, party you're on, like everybody's behind it. So currently, I want to tell you a little bit about our preschool that we have here in U-46. Our program has a capacity right now to serve 1,360 students each year. In our U-46 community, in our whole school district, our most recent census data shows us that we have 9,853 children that are eligible for preschool between the ages of 3 to 5, with nearly 3,000 of them living at or below the poverty level. So what we're looking at when we consider their poverty level would be a family of 4 living at about $49,000 a year. The majority of our preschoolers are currently participating in our half-day program. This program can be difficult for families to access because we're only able to offer one-way transportation and the day is only 2.5 hours. So many of our families work and it's really difficult to get your child to school for only 2.5 hours when you only can get busing one way. Our full day program is offered for the same length of time as a first grade or our elementary classrooms. And we do have two-way transportation, so that's improved for them. But in order to provide the transportation, we have to offset the day by an hour to an hour and a half. So if you have a preschooler in our full day program and a third grader, your third grader is going to start school an hour before your preschooler, and then your preschooler is not going to get home until an hour after your third grader. So while we have the transportation, it comes at a little bit of a cost for our families. U-46 is spread out over 90 square miles, and we currently have 3 early learning centers and 6 elementary sites. You can see on the map where all of our locations are across the district. And there you can also notice that there are large areas where there's no programming available close to homes. The full day program is only offered in 2 locations right now, which results in long bus rides for the children and increased transitions for our youngest learners, meaning that we take all of the kids are eligible for our preschool program, but we have to divide them up and put them in buses to all of these different locations, where if they were in their home neighborhoods, they would have closer access to the services and not have to transition to one school for preschool and then to another school for kindergarten for elementary school. So next, Dr. Carpenter is to discuss a little bit about what we would need to do to our buildings to allow access for our preschoolers.
Thank you, Katie. So in order to make this vision a reality of expanding preschool opportunities, there are, from a facility standpoint, there's several things that we need to keep in mind. I don't know if you remember back, and some of you have really young children at home, or toddlers, or babies even. There's a lot that we have to take into account when we consider little people and big people, as Ms. Mastorovich will talk about shortly, but there's a facilities component to all of this. And so some things that we need to consider as we move forward and we think about expanding opportunities for more preschoolers in all of our buildings across the district is we need to think about first floor classrooms. So that may seem like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, that we don't want to have our younger learners traversing steps or getting on elevators or things of that nature. So it's some things that we have to consider. And I think all of you are starting to also think about, okay, how does this pair well with as we think about the transition of sixth graders into into a middle school model. Because when we make that transition, we also need to have a lot of forethought in terms of how we modify the spaces at our current elementary schools to make room, appropriate space for our youngest learners. Other implications are we need to have bathrooms in every one of our classrooms. So there's a component there that we need to keep in mind relative to access to bathrooms in the classroom, not down the hallway, but in the classrooms. Arrival and dismissal areas. This is really important from a safety standpoint, as we have students potentially as young as 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds coming to school for the very first time. So we want to make sure that we're mindful of and thinking about how we receive those students in the morning and how they get on a bus and leave in the afternoon. And also our playgrounds and access to indoor play space. And so when we think about some of the implications for how do we also provide our youngest learners with the opportunity to engage in play-based learning at our sites on a day-to-day basis, and how do we make that really accessible to them? So again, thinking about as we transition sixth graders into a middle school model, there is a lot of thinking that needs to happen in terms of how we receive now 3- and 4-year-olds at all of our sites. And there's many more. This is certainly not an exhaustive list, but to get you sort of thinking about what are some of those others, and we're going to ask you for some feedback about that tonight. What are some other things we need to be cognizant of when we think about this transition to expanding opportunities for our preschoolers in terms of facilities implications? So this really comes back to our why. When we think about our vision for the future of preschool in U-46. As Ms. Cox stated, we currently have in 6 of our elementary schools, we currently have preschoolers there. So we do this. We welcome 3- and 4-year-olds to several of our buildings. We have 3 centers across our district. So we have experience in this, but when we think about opening it up, more opportunities to more elementary sites, to have our our preschool students come to preschool at their neighborhood school. There's many things that we need to consider, and we need to really start with why would we do this? Why is this important? Ms. Cox shared some of the research, and the research is really clear when we think about improved outcomes. That box there on the second from the right. When we think about improved outcomes, the research is extremely clear beyond the malleability of the brain and especially at such a young age, and the opportunities that we have to support students from an academic and a social, emotional, behavioral standpoint. Research is really clear. This is the right thing to do. When we think about reducing barriers, it was touched on earlier about transportation. That is a real barrier. It certainly is when students receive only one-way transportation, especially for our families. While it sounds like a great thing, we have working families, and access to preschool is sometimes inhibited as a result of transportation. Not to mention, when you saw that map, the amount of space that we have between those sites. And little guys on a bus, that's not a great form for a longer period of time than we want, is not a great formula. It's not a great way to start the day. It's not a great way to end the day going home to be on a bus for that length of a period of time, which is really comes back to our why. We want to be able to provide access for more opportunities for our youngest learners that is not across the district, but is really located within relative proximity to their home. So I mentioned about increasing opportunities. That really comes back to how we want to provide students with more opportunities to go to school at their home site, and then also expand the opportunity for more students to participate in our preschool programming. So it's really about expanding opportunity and what could that look like in our district. It's very, very exciting. And then also greater readiness. Didn't talk a lot about this tonight, but certainly as we look at several years ago, as we transitioned to a full day, we offer full day programming, as I'm sure all of you know, full day kindergarten programming in the district. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to prepare students for that experience. So even when we think about our half-day program preschool students, that's a big transition. When we think about going from a half-day program to a full-day kindergarten program, and our kids in kindergarten are moving, and they're busy. And so as we look at expanding more opportunities for our students at the preschool level, that portion of the why are we doing that? Because we know what the expectations are in kindergarten and beyond. And so what can we do to even prepare more of our students for the opportunity to engage in preschool programming in the very near future? So I'll wrap with this slide. When we think about transition planning, some of the things that we didn't just come to you tonight with this thought about transitioning to expanding opportunities. We've also done some work over the last, really over the last 15 months with the National P3 Center, the University of Denver. And we had we did an audit of our pre-K through third grade programming that we offer. So if we're going to offer more expanded opportunities, what are the things that we need to start doing now to prepare for that from a staffing standpoint, from an education, from a support standpoint? What are those elements that we need to have in place? So when the switch is flipped and we can offer more opportunities, that we're prepared. From a curricular standpoint, from a facility standpoint, as I mentioned tonight, but from a lot of different there's a lot to consider, which is why you're here, to help us really consider what are we missing. But the University of Denver, the National P3 Center, is really one of the foremost experts in this area of early learning. That's what they do. And so we're excited. We've completed that audit and we're getting those findings back, and we'll be able to share in the very near future. But also bringing in parent and community voice. This is one opportunity, and there's a lot of information that you'll be receiving tonight, but how do we continue this ongoing information sharing? Maybe we'll learn something tonight from you about what more information are you looking for from us? What can we provide for you to give you a little more information? Maybe you're thinking, maybe I'm missing something in this area. Love to hear that information. We can certainly share that with you, but we'd like this to be an ongoing conversation to help us be ultimately prepared for expanded opportunities for our preschool students. And then we're also thinking in the fall to sort of dig into this even deeper, to convene a call to committee that would be a representative committee that would really help us think about some of the finer details of this transition, or excuse me, the expansion of our preschool programming. So those are just some things. Those are some just a few things that we're thinking of outside of this evening. What else are we doing in order to ensure that we're prepared for more preschool students coming our way? So that wraps up the preschool component of it. And I was trying to think of a really clever segue. But I think I'll let Ms. Mastorovich handle the segues tonight. I mean, she's really good with segues, so watch. So thank you very much for this evening. I really look forward to your feedback. I thank Ms. Cox also for her input, and I'm really looking forward to your feedback and what we can do moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carpenter and Ms. Cox. As you can see, there are so many benefits to providing greater access to preschool in our communities. And as we continue to discuss our vision for facilities in U-46, there are also so many benefits in implementing a middle school model that includes grades 6 through 8. Again, I'm Lela Majstorovic, the Assistant Superintendent of Schools, and I'm honored to be here tonight to engage you in this conversation. And I look forward to all the feedback through the activities later this evening. The biggest reason for including 6th grade into middle schools is, of course, to benefit our students. We know that 6th to 8th grade, the middle school model, that 6th to 8th grade is best practice in education. Data from the National Center for Educational Statistics shows that 69.6% of middle schools in the United States serve grades 6 through 8. And research dating back to the 1960s actually called for a middle school model that serves grades 6 through 8 that we'll spend some more time discussing this evening. Our purpose is to ensure that all of our systems work for our students, and shifting to this model will support that goal. So in U-46, we currently have approximately 5,600 middle school students in grades 7 and 8. And when we think about our goal to include sixth grade into the middle school starting in the 24-25 school year, we dug into our data and determined approximately how many students we needed to plan for. With the 24-25 school year being that target date for this shift, we had to look back at our current third through fifth graders, as these students will be our middle school students in the 2024-2025 school year. And the current enrollment in those grade levels is approximately 7,400 students, which means we'll need to add another middle school site to have enough capacity to accommodate sixth to eighth grade in all middle schools. So as a result, and as you are all aware, we'll be adding a ninth middle school in the southern area of U-46 at the site that is currently Hawk Hollow Elementary School. And by adding this ninth building, we'll be able to absorb all of our sixth grade students into 9 middle schools. But again, why is it so critical to move sixth grade into middle school? Well, we can start by discussing the current day in the life of a U-46 sixth grader. In our elementary schools, sixth graders have a 6-hour day where they spend the majority of their time in a classroom with one teacher who teaches almost all of the subject areas. And our current sixth graders, they do have access to art, music, PE, and library, but it only happens once a week. And then in addition, current sixth graders spend the entire day with the same group of 20 to 25 students. And sometimes they integrate with other students during, lunch or recess, but for the most part, they're with the same students all day, which is very different than the vision for middle schools that we have as we transition sixth grade into that. So we know, however, that developmentally, sixth graders are going through some significant changes. Aside from the infancy and the preschool years that you just heard about, students in grades 6 through 8 experience some of the most significant changes in their growth in their lifetime. This is one of the main reasons why we need to bring sixth grade into our middle schools. Having schools that are structured in a way to ensure students are engaged in learning and experiences that allow them to develop physically, cognitively, socially, and psychologically. We want to provide access to resources at our middle schools that enhance this development and take into account all of our students' lived experiences in order to propel them forward towards success later in life. With this shift, we can ensure that we have the appropriate resources all in one building, right in the middle school, as it pertains to the curriculum, instruction, assessments, culture and community, and leadership and organization. So this is a multifaceted period of development, and being immersed in middle schools, I can attest to these most critical areas of development that I just talked about. But what's so exciting about this shift, as a U-46 community, especially tonight, you get to be part of this work and impact these developmental areas in a holistic manner with a true middle school model, more so than what we're able to do with our current model of 7th to 8th grade. So as we think about this period in the life of the child, and as we reflect on our challenge as a district to transform the experiences of our students, it ties back to our moral imperative and our focus on rigorous learning, quality core instruction, and skills development for better life chances and opportunities. In a successful middle school, that means a lot of things, but let's start with the curriculum and what that looks like in the vision that we have for a middle school model. So for all levels, we always aim for a comprehensive curriculum that is culturally relevant, that is responsive to who our students are, including their language background and developmental level, taking into account the assets they bring from home and aligned to grade level standards, of course, to ensure that students are learning what they're supposed to be learning and being challenged with high expectations to use their knowledge to solve complex problems. We want our students to be explorers, thinkers, and communicators. In fact, what makes this unique within the middle school model, which is different from the elementary, is the exploratory piece for middle school students. Whereas in elementary, the curriculum is heavily focused on math, reading, and writing, as you saw in the example before. But in middle school, students have the opportunity to engage in hands-on learning through science labs, health classes, rotations or electives in culinary arts, robotics, engineering, art, band, chorus, orchestra, or computers, for example. And it also means a curriculum that is integrative, focusing on inquiry and action, asking questions, problem solving, critical thinking, working across the disciplines, everything that we want our students to be doing and everything that they're going to have to do when they go on to high school and college and beyond. Oops, sorry. But then you cannot talk about curriculum without also talking about instruction. In a true middle school model, one significant difference from the current model that we have is that learning is team-based, both for students and for teachers. For students, that means that they're grouped in small learning communities of about 120 to 150 students that share the same 4 to 5 teachers in their core content areas. So unlike high school, where they're with different teachers and different students all day long, and unlike elementary school, where it's the same students and same teacher all day long, this is kind of an in-between. There's a larger group of students that share the same 4 to 5 teachers in language arts, science, social studies, math, PE. And this allows teachers to get to know their group of students very well, but it also allows students to move around and engage with different kids throughout the day. And for teachers, this allows them to collaborate on meeting their students' strengths and needs, identifying as a team of teachers, those 4 to 5, any additional supports necessary. And because these same teachers work with the same group of students throughout the year, you can feel confident as a parent that through their collaboration, they can quickly determine what works best for each individual child, as observed across the different classrooms. And for students, just like I said, it gives them the opportunity to engage with other students, maybe not in the same classes with the same students all day long, but they'll have the same team of 150 students that they're engaging with throughout the day. And as they work in teams, they collaborate with their peers. They're empowered to take ownership of their own learning through inquiry and investigation. And their learning is not only purposeful, but it's visible. So we want to see them actively engaging in cognitively complex tasks, question one another, assume different roles as leaders, and become critical and creative thinkers. And of course, with effective instructional practices comes learning. And how do we know students are learning? Through varied, ongoing, and supportive feedback that promotes learning and allows teachers to gauge progress and plan lessons. And that's what we mean when we talk about assessments. Traditionally, we think of assessments as final exams or standardized tests, but in reality, teachers are assessing kids every single day to ensure that they're mastering what they're supposed to learn for that day and using that information to plan their lessons for the following day and to continue on and move forward. We want that daily monitoring because we know that that helps teachers determine who needs extra help, who's ready to move on, who needs additional challenge. It gives them a lot of information. And that's the type of assessment we want to see in our middle school as we envision our new middle school model. And unlike elementary school, students' progress on the standards comes across different content areas and they're measured with letter grades. We do have, our standards-based system, but we convert them to letter grades, which of course students and parents can monitor on Infinite Campus on an ongoing basis. How many of you have middle school students currently? How many of you have a current 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader that'll be part of this transition process? Awesome. I do too. I have a current middle school 7th grade student and a current 5th grader. I also have a kindergartner, but he'll come along later. But it's interesting to me as a parent, right? When you get your grades in elementary school, you kind of get them every quarter, and you don't really know how students are doing along the way. In middle school, as we engage in standards-based learning and assessment, you learn what your students are learning on an ongoing basis. You get those notifications from Parent Portal on Infinite Campus, and you get to see how your kids are progressing through standards. And that's through these various assessment techniques that teachers will be implementing in the classrooms on an ongoing basis. Another successful middle school characteristic is, of course, a healthy culture and community. And we all know that focusing on only academics does not develop the whole child, nor does it address the needs of our young adolescents. So therefore, in our 6 to 8 middle school model, we'll look to embed social emotional learning. Some of that happens organically by the mere fact that they're automatically in these middle school teams. But we also want to provide the opportunity for increased parental involvement, where parents and students are able to form a 3-year relationship versus a 2-year relationship. So we know currently, right, you end elementary school, you're, the PTO president, or you're on the PTO, and you have all these wonderful events and things to do at the elementary school level. Kids go into the middle school, and a lot of times it's like, no, mom, don't talk to me. I don't want to know you. And it's hard to get involved. And then finally, when you get to warm up, at the end of 7th grade, you start in 8th grade, and boom, they're gone and into high school. So having in that additional 3 years really allows for us to engage with families, engage with our community, meet each other, have that opportunity to have ongoing parental involvement for a longer period of time because we know that's important. That's important in all of our schools, and it's especially important during those middle school years. And so these intentional strategies, they build a sense of community and positive culture and climate. And with the support of community partnerships and clubs, it directly impacts the safety of middle school in a positive way. And the other piece here in culture and community is there are also opportunities in middle school for students to engage in extracurricular activities such as clubs or athletics after school, which we would also offer, of course, to our sixth graders as they transition. So we know that supporting the transition to middle school is going to be critical with this new model. And we've already begun this practice for incoming middle schoolers through our summer middle school experience, where our incoming seventh graders attend for 3 to 4 days over the summer. They're introduced to their middle school by engaging in many team building, academically and socially focused activities. And this experience helps to alleviate their concerns or fears from being, the youngest kids coming into the school, but it also gets them to familiarize themselves with the building before the school year begins. And of course, we would look to continue that practice. And then lastly, at the core of our 6 to 8 middle school model will be leadership and organization. A shared vision developed by all stakeholders will guide decision-making with the creation of not only a specific middle school philosophy around core beliefs centered on young adolescents, but also what do we want a middle school student to look like? What's the portrait of a student as they finish middle school? And how do we get to that place together as a community? The focus for us will be on equitable practices grounded in research related to this age group with unbiased and fairly implemented policies. A culture of collaboration permeates the building in our new middle school, with the school leader empowering others to assume ownership and responsibility for the school community, working toward a common purpose. And professional learning for all staff is relevant, ongoing, and job embedded, which includes creating opportunities for teachers to learn from each other in professional learning communities, plan together in their teacher teams. And of course, the organizational structures, including people, time, and space, are created to maximize our young adolescents' growth and development and support relationship building and connectedness. Once again, this aligns with our teaming model and common planning time, which currently doesn't exist as a consistent structure in all of our sites. So we're really excited about the potential to bring this to all sites across U-46. So as we continue to plan for this transition, we know we can't wait until 2024, 2025. So we are starting some of this work right now. We have added additional counselors and social workers to our middle schools for next year, working to create structures of support for students early on so that we're prepared when our sixth graders make that transition to middle school. In addition, as you were made aware during our last Unite U-46 session, we continue to consider updates and renovations to our existing spaces in order to make sure we have flexible learning spaces that will allow our curriculum and instruction to come to life, that it will allow our students to work in teams and our teachers to collaborate. And all of this work is geared toward one goal: to increase positive outcomes for our students. So as we continue to work on our planning for this transition, we've also partnered with the Association for Middle Level Education for support, as they are the nation's leading organization when it comes to middle schools. And we're also going to be bringing in parent and student voice starting tonight to help set priorities for our work ahead and get feedback on our planning throughout the process. And finally, we know we have curricular updates that need to be made in order to support our work. And so we've started to convene curriculum teams to start to think about what this will look like for sixth graders going into middle school in order to ensure we have everything ready to go for the 2024-2025 school year. And so now I'd like to hand it over to Dana Wojnarowski. I have to learn everybody's last name. Mine's hard to pronounce. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to all of our presenters tonight. We really appreciate, as we're making this transition, working together to get your feedback. It really helps us to make those informed decisions, and can't thank you enough for taking the time to put that together and share it with us this evening. So again, thank you. We really appreciate this time. Thank you so much for all being here. It's time for us to get to work now. So whether you are joining us here in person or virtually, we do really please encourage you to stay for our small group work. That's where you're able to provide us that important feedback that we can use. And it's really important for the success of the Unite U-46 process and for moving our school district forward. So for those of you in person, on your table, you will find that blue sheet. That blue paper is tonight's work activity. This is your official sheet for the recorder to use. For those of you that are joining us virtually, you will find the link to this work activity on your welcome link. So we're going to go ahead and go through these instructions together to help make sure you understand what our work is and what we're going to be doing this evening. All right, so at each table, please begin by selecting a recorder and a facilitator. Our virtual participants, you will do the same in a breakout room tonight. The recorder is responsible for completing the worksheet, that blue piece of paper, and please make sure to complete that information in the box that's up in that upper right-hand corner. That's very helpful to us. The facilitator for your table should facilitate discussions. Keep the group focused so the work is completed on time, and then report the table results at the end of the evening. So please make sure that the information that's recorded on that blue sheet reflects the general agreement of everyone in your group, not just the opinion of one or two individuals. That's one of the real benefits of being here in person. You're able to collaborate with one another, and we just really ask that that blue sheet reflects that collaborative opinion. So we ask that you monitor the time to make sure you get this done. We'll let you know when we have a few minutes left, so that way you'll know when to kind of start wrapping up. We're going to ask that we'll start reporting this out about 8:30 tonight. At the end of the session, we will only collect the worksheet that has been completed by the recorder, and each Zoom breakout room will only submit one online form. All right, so we have 3 tasks this evening. We have provided on that blue piece of paper some examples and some example responses for each of the questions to help get your discussion started. Please keep in mind that these are only the examples. We really encourage and we really need you to think outside of the box as you work to come toward that common consensus for these tasks and provide your input and your ideas. So if you take a look, the tasks are outlined on that blue piece of paper. And then for our virtual participants, we will now be sending you to your breakout rooms. Remember, you will need to select your facilitator and your recorder for those in the breakout room. If you have any questions, please, those of you that are joining us virtually, you can leave your breakout room and we'll be there to help you. All right, you may go ahead, get started. Please, if you have any questions, also use that question form that you have, or please grab one of us at any time throughout this activity. All right, thank you.